coming in at number 10 is Park M. And the reason it's only number 10 is it doesn't get really long stems on it. So I can't use it in bouquets. But it is a really big seller in my pop cans. So that's why it makes my number 10. Hi everyone, it's Evelyn. And in this week's video, we're going to do the countdown of my top 10 favorite dinner plate dahlias. Now, as you saw, Park M is my number 10. And I'll explain why I call it Park M. It actually originally was a decorative dahlia, cactus dahlia, that I bought called Park Princess. Park Princess bloomed prolifically for me for a few years. And then all of a sudden, when I brought the tubers out of hibernation, I think it was on its 3rd year or 4th year, I can't remember which of the two, they had all reverted back to presumably one of the parent plants. And I don't know what it is, so I call it Park M. Park for Park Princess and M for Evelyn M, E-M. And as you see here by these two pictures, they have very similar look to them. Park M is a little bit more purpley, less pink. But the thing is it's much bigger. It's a dinner plate size. It's about an 8 or 9 inch bloom. And Park Princess, which was a much more cactusy petal, thinner, was only 4 inches. So I have a tuber of a dinner plate that I have no idea what it is. But it sells really well at my roadside flower wagon in pop cans, as I mentioned. Here's an example of what that is. It's a Park M popped into a pop can, and that sells for $4 or 3 for $10. And it does sell well, and it's about the only really pink one that I have. I do have Labyrinth, but it's not as pinky, even though this is more of a purpley pink than a true pink. And that's why it makes my top 10, because it's a color that I don't have. It's very, very popular at the roadside flower wagon, and it holds well in the heat. Coming in at number 9 is Tartan. This is the only Tartan I have blooming right now, and it's a strange looking one. It's smaller than they usually are. As you can see, it's only really the size of the width of my fingers. And it's got a lot more white in it than normal. So Tartan is supposed to be an 8 inch dinner plate dahlia. Clearly that one wasn't 8 inches, but we are now into September, and some of the dinner plates are blooming a little bit smaller. I don't know if all the Tartans are going to bloom that much whiter in color. I can't remember from last year. You'll see in this picture here that they're usually got quite a bit more purple striations in them. Sometimes they're heavily purple with just a little bit of white. Now, the reason Tartan only comes in at number 9 is it's not a prolific bloomer, and the tubers don't store as well as a lot of the other ones. So if I have one plant, I'm lucky if I get 2 plants out of it. And for that reason, it's a difficult dinner plate to have, because I'm always concerned that they're not going to make it and may have to buy some to replace the tubers over the winter. And also, it just doesn't produce a lot of flowers. The reason it does make my top 9 is because I love it. It's beautiful, and it's so different from a lot of the other ones that you see. Now, I've spoken of number 9 and number 10, Tartan and Park M, as why they made it and barely made it. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll see some of my dinner plate dahlias that didn't make it, and I'll explain why they didn't make it. And if you stick around right till the very end, you're going to see a really cool thrifted find that I found actually just earlier on today, and can't wait to show you that. Now let's get on to number 8, and number 8 is AC Ben. Such a beautiful orange. If I tip it this way, you can see how much more orange it is than a yellow dahlia. It's just a stunning orange, and it's really popular in the fall. That's AC Ben coming in at number 8. So AC Ben makes my number 8 for a number of reasons. One, it's the only orange one I have that I like. It's a beautiful, beautiful orange. It's a cactus dahlia. It's not the best in the sun, but it's just great in the fall. It's a prolific bloomer, which is great. It's a prolific tuber producer, which is great. So the only downfall it has is it doesn't like the really, really hot days. But frankly, I'm not growing it for the heat of the summer. I'm growing it for the fall, when the fall colors are more like oranges and yellows. So that's why AC Ben makes my number, and it's big. I mean, it's a what is it? I've got it written down here. It's a 10-inch dinner plate, so it's got a good size to it, and that's why AC Ben makes my number 8. Coming in at number 7 is Papa Gino. Papa Gino is very, very similar to Wanda's Aurora, but it's a little less orangey, a little more pinky. I don't know how else to describe it. That's Papa Gino. So Papa Gino is also a 10-inch diameter dinner plate, which is one of the reasons why I really like it. I like the 10-inch diameter ones for 2 reasons. One, you can pick them before they're fully at their 10-inch size, but also that means when they start to get a little bit smaller in the fall, they're still big. Now, before I carry on, I want to apologize for the road noise that happens whenever I show the dinner plate dahlias in their actual garden beds, because that's in my front garden and we're on a busy road and cars go by all the time. I can't wait for a dead zone of no cars, because it just doesn't happen during the day. So unfortunately, the car noise is going to be part of it when I feature each of the dinner plate dahlias and all of the dinner plate dahlias. The other thing I wanted to say before I carry on is, if you're enjoying this video so far, please give it a like. Really appreciate it. It helps the algorithm. Now, let's get on to number 7. Number 6 is Wanda's Aurora, and as you can see, it's more peachy orange around the outside, and also it has quite a bit more yellow in it than Papa Gino. It's a pretty reliable dahlia. I love it. It pairs obviously really well with Wanda's Capella. Wanda's Capella is, for me, is almost interchangeable with Papa Gino. I mean, they don't look quite the same. I'll put both of them here with Papa Gino on the top and Wanda's Aurora. Did I say Capella? I meant Aurora, with Wanda's Aurora on the bottom. They do look different, but they're so similar in look that they make a nice pairing. So if I don't have much in the way of Wanda's Aurora blooming or much in the way of Papa Gino blooming, I can use them together, and usually that one on opposite sides of a bouquet. Now let's get on to my top 5. Coming in at number 5 is Wanda's Capella. Look at the size of this. That's how big it gets if you leave it on the stem. I usually pick them a little smaller. It used to be my number 1. It is just an absolutely beautiful yellow dinner plate dahlia. Whether it's as big as this, which clearly it's as big, it's huge, or if it's a little bit smaller and more manageable in a bouquet like this, either way, it's just stunning. So Wanda's Capella used to be my favorite dinner plate dahlia. It was always my number 1. And the reason it's not my number 1 anymore, mainly is because when I'm doing bouquets, I'm pairing it with sunflowers, and there's a lot of yellow and orange tones in the sunflowers. So I don't want to have an all yellow bouquet. So I'm looking for dahlias that don't have a full head of yellow or other colors for when I'm doing bouquets, usually. Now, when I do a bouquet with red sunflowers, that doesn't matter. So if I mix in sunflowers that have other colors in them besides the yellow and the orange, the Wanda's Capella is still great. I mean, it's an 11-inch diameter dinner plate. It's really is one of my favorite top 5. But the thing is the red sunflowers, the red lemon sunflowers, the plum, they're not as prolific or as usable as the orange light or the gold light, the orange, the white light, and the white night. Those 4, not only do they bloom first, but they also stay looking good for at least minimum 10 days. The red doesn't have a 10-day vase life. So if I'm picking some sunflowers, and I'm picking so many and I'm not using them all, the white ones and the orange and gold ones I can still use a few days later. I'm hesitant to use the red ones a few days later, so they get used right away. And that's usually when I pair them with the Wanda Scapella. The Wanda Scapella also, it does well in the heat, but once we're over 30 degrees, it's not as good as my other top 4. And with that, let's get on to my top, my fourth, how do you say that, top 4? Number 4 in my top 10 dinner plate dahlias for 2023. Coming in at number 4, which was right beside Wanda's Capella, is Lindsay Michelle. And boy, do they ever make a nice pairing. Lindsay Michelle is has lacinated petals, which if you can see up here nice and close, means it's got little splits in its petals at the end, or like a little snake's tongue. That's Lindsay Michelle, coming in at number 4. Lindsay Michelle makes my number 4 for a number of reasons. It's a highly prolific bloomer. It just blooms like crazy. I have 8 plants, and all 8 plants, even though I'm cutting from them literally every day, they're just loaded with flowers. So I can count on it to have flowers ready to pick on a constant basis. It's about the only dinner plate dahlia I have that if I have 8 of them, I can count on it to supply me with blossoms every single day. And more than one. I mean, I could probably pick 2 a day off of those 8 plants every single day, all month long. It's just an incredible producer of flowers. The other thing that I really like about it is it gives that little pop of pink in a bouquet. I mean, it looks, on its own, a single one looks a little garish because of that donut of fuchsia around the outside and that little center ball on the inside, and you think that's a pretty garish looking dahlia. But in amongst a full bouquet, it's just a little pink accent. And I love that little pop of pink that shows up. It's not overpowering because it's one flower amongst all the rest, unless of course you're doing a bouquet of it, in which case there would be a lot of pink and yellow. But if you're only including 1 or 2, and if there's 2, they're usually on opposite sides, so you only see 1 at a time, it's just a little pop of pink. So it's not overpowering at all. And the yellow that's included with it pairs nice with the yellow dahlias, pairs nice with the orange and gold and yellow sunflowers. And yeah, I really, really love it. And that was my number 4. Let's get into my top 3. Labyrinth comes in at number 3 with its beautiful twisty petals that have a very salmon color in them, as well as a very pink color. It is just so full of life, and it is definitely my top 3, coming in at number 3. Labyrinth, like Wanda's Capella, is an 11-inch diameter dinner plate dahlia, which is one of the reasons why I love it. I love the really big ones for the reasons I said before, that you can harvest it before it's fully open and it's still large. And in the fall, and when I'm talking fall, our first killing frost sometimes isn't until well into November. So I can still sell at my flower wagon into November, but because the days are so much shorter and clearly cooler than in the summer, the flowers are smaller. So the dinner plate dahlias by November are definitely smaller than they were in August. So it's like, I'm just going to put Evelyn's ball down. She just handed it to me. The flowers are definitely way smaller that time of year. So the bigger the dinner plate, even though it's way smaller, it's still large. So that's one thing I like about Labyrinth because of its size. The other thing is, it's not a real bright screaming pink. It's a soft peachy pinky kind of color with variations in it. So it doesn't feel, I'm not a pink lover, so it doesn't feel overpoweringly pink to me. I don't like a lot of pink. I don't mind it in little bits and pieces. And that one just feels softer than a real true pink. Certainly softer than this one, which is actually the Park M, which is actually not a color that I like. But, you know, it's not all about what I like. People who are buying them at the flower wagon as singles like this, they're buying them because they like that color. But I find a big blotch of pink in a bouquet is hard to work with. Little touches of it like in a Cosmo, that's fine. That's light and airy and delicate. But a big giant dinner plate dahlia of a bright, like Pen's Gift. I'll put a picture of Pen's Gift up so you can see what it looks like. That's a real big blotch of pink, and I find that really hard to work with in a bouquet. I had Pen's Gift last year. I sold them off because it was just too hard for me to use. And it was one of those ones that didn't do well in the heat and so forth and so on. So I no longer am growing Pen's Gift. I may in the future look for another pink one just to add in, but for now, Labyrinth is about as pink as I want to get. Love that dahlia. Prolific bloomer, good size, good tuber production, great in the heat, and my flower wagon up on the road is not air conditioned. It gets the sun all day long, right up until sunset, because the sun actually at noon comes around to the front of the flower wagon, and for the rest of the day, right up until sunset, it's going right into the flower wagon. So being able to withstand heat is really, really important for my flowers. Now, let's get on to number 2. Spartacus is my number 2 dahlia. The only reason it's not my number 1 is because it's not as prolific as the one that I'm choosing for number 1. I love Spartacus. It has such a deep, dark, rich red that doesn't really show up on camera all that well. There's another one up here. If you look in the shadow parts here, that's very true, but this part's showing a little lighter than what it actually is. Oh, there, if I get rid of the shadow, the light shining on it, you can see how, or shining through the leaves, you can see how much darker it is. That's more true to color. So the only thing wrong with Spartacus is I didn't grow enough of them this year. I am definitely going to have more Spartacus plants next year. I love it. I love the color. I love the way the petals wrap around the back and almost make it a full head. It holds up well to the heat, surprisingly, for that color. It's just stunning in a bouquet. I absolutely love Spartacus, and I'm definitely going to grow more of that next year. I'm going to grow more of the Labyrinth as well. I don't need to grow more of the Wanda's Capella because I grew lots of that. But Spartacus, yeah, I need way more than that. I want more than 8 plants of Spartacus because it's one that I would just use every single time it opens up a blossom. I will use it. None will ever not get used. I wait for them. Now, after that, let's get on to number 1, my number 1 dinner plate dahlia of 2023. My new number 1 for 2023 in dinner plate dahlias is AC Loomis. This one's a little small. It'll in another day it'll be a bit bigger. The bigger ones I've all cut. But it is by far the best dinner plate dahlia I'm growing this year. Look at how the underside has that beautiful white. AC Loomis, top dinner plate dahlia of 2023. AC Loomis is a prolific bloomer. It's a prolific tuber producer, and I sell lots of the tubers of AC Loomis as well. It holds up incredibly well into the heat wave that we've had all summer long since the beginning of May. It's just a stunning dahlia. There's nothing I can think about it that I don't like. I grew 9 of those this year knowing that I liked it. So instead of just doing the usual 8, I did an extra one. Still not enough. That's another one that I'm absolutely going to grow way more of because I just love that dahlia. And that's why it makes my number 1, because I just absolutely love it. Now, before we get on to the dinner plates that I'm not going to grow this year, that aren't going to make the cut for next year, I just wanted to say that with the weather cooling down now in September, and of course the days being a little bit shorter, the dahlias are not producing as prolifically as they were in August. So what I've done now in my bouquets is I'm only doing 3 dinner plates in a bouquet, and I'm putting in more sunflowers. So here you can see an AC Loomis, my number 1 dahlia. Looking absolutely stunning in here. It just pairs so well with the yellows and the golds. Next to it, transitioning away from that sort of crimson color, is my Lindsay Michelle with its fuchsia and yellow. And again, pairing really well with golds and yellows because of the golden yellow that's in here. And yet that really harsh fuchsia not overpowering because there's so much else in it. And then the third one is my Wanda's Capella. Whoops. Might help if I could show you how it actually looks. This is my Wanda's Capella. And I'm keeping it really low. I'm keeping the somewhat smaller sunflowers up higher. And then I'm just popping some pink cosmos in the top, which ties in with the Lindsay Michelle and the AC Loomis. I also have one, what are you? I don't know what you are. You're either a red or a red lemon. You can look like a cross between sunflower in there as well, but otherwise it's all, here's a red lemon. And again, that sort of has the same sort of feeling as the Lindsay Michelle because of the two-tone. Got lots of gold. I got a double click. Got an orange. No, that's a gold light. And a lemon. And yeah, even with just the 3 dinner plates, because I've added in a few more smaller sunflowers, it's more dancey than when it has 4 dinner plates in it, and it still feels pretty full. I've also added in a stem of laurel. So yeah, so that's how my recipes for the bouquets are going now. I've dropped it down to 3 dinner plates per bouquet because I'm not getting as many coming up as I was before. So now let's get on to the dinner plate dahlias that I'm not going to grow next year. There are ones that I grew this year, but based on how they did in this extended heat wave, which, you know, the way the climate's going, it's probably going to happen again next year, I'm simply not going to grow them next year. I will sell off all the tubers. They're perfectly fine as a garden dahlia, but I'm not looking for garden dahlias. I'm looking for cut flower dahlias. So let's get on to the first one. Not making the cut for 2024 is AC Big Johnson. Unfortunately, it's just this morning I cut all the ones that had blown open, and there's already more blown open. It just doesn't handle the heat at all. So I won't be growing AC Big Johnson next year. I was growing AC Big Johnson because it had more of a gold color rather than a yellow color. But, you know, I didn't use a single one this season. They just blew open instantly. And in the heat, like if this was an AC Big Johnson, within a couple of hours, all these petals, it would have just sagged down to the bottom. This one, I cut yesterday. And it was in the wagon all day long, right up until sunset, past sunset, in the heat. And you can see the heat hasn't bothered it at all. AC Big Johnson would have been tuckered out within 2 hours. It's really too bad, but I can't use it, and I didn't use it. So another one that doesn't like the heat and blows open really fast and does that instant petal sagging is one that I really love, and I was contemplating and still growing a few for the fall, but the reality is there's other ones that I would rather grow more of. So in order to grow more of my top ones, I have to have space for them, which means I have to eliminate some. So unfortunately, this next one is one of the ones that I'm eliminating as well. I love Conor McBee. I really love it, but I haven't been able to use it at all this year because it just doesn't perform well in the heat. So unless I break down and plant one just for myself next year, I won't be growing this for 2024. I can't express how much I love Conor McBee. And then the one that I cut yesterday, it's just proving me wrong because it's not blown open. I mean, the coloring on that is just stunning. But yeah, I'm so torn on that one. Probably grow one one or two, if nothing else. It should be a good one to sell the tubers off of, but it's one that for all summer long I couldn't use either. I kept cutting them, hoping, and putting them in the pop cans, hoping that they would do well on the days that weren't as hot, and yet I'd have to change it within a couple of hours because it was just not looking good anymore. So yeah, Conor McBee, it's really, really sad that that one's not going to make it. Same as Bodacious. But for a cut flower garden, you got to grow what you can use and sell. It's not a home garden where you're just enjoying them from the window, so you have to be a little bit ruthless no matter how much you like something. I say that and wait till next year. So there are a couple more that I'm not growing next year, and here's the next one. Another one I won't be growing for 2024 is Bodacious. I love its fiery colors, but it, like AC Big Johnson, blows open in the heat. And when it's not hot, it produces really small flowers. So unfortunately, it just won't be making the cut. I love it though, it's so pretty. But not for the cut flower garden. Dropping for 2024, sadly, is Thomas Edison. 2 years ago, it was one of my favorites. Started to fall out of favor last year, and it has most definitely fallen out of favor this year. So I will not be growing it again next year. So Thomas Edison isn't making my cut for several reasons. One, it doesn't do well in the heat. Two, that purple color is really hard to use in a bouquet because I don't have anything else of that color to pair it with. So I need to just sell it in the pop cans. But the thing is it's not selling in the pop cans. So if it's not a dahlia that people are buying, there's no point in growing it. So I'll be selling off all of those tubers as well. It's just not one that's going to make me any money whatsoever. And then finally, there's one more that I'm cutting for 2024, and yet it might be one that I keep a couple of too, but I'm not growing it for a different reason, and I'll show you what that one is now. As much as I love Encore with its golden color, and I don't have another one this color, I will be dropping it for next year. It's not holding up well to the heat. It doesn't produce long stems. It's quite short, as you can see. So while it does well in the pop cans, it only does well in the pop cans when it's cooler. So it's taking up space that I can use for something else. Sadly, it will be gone for next year. So the reason I may keep a couple of those is because I do sell them. Encore is really quite beautiful. It's a gold color. And on its own in a pop can, it does well in the fall when it's not that hot out. So do I want to keep space for one or two plants that I'm only going to be cutting flowers off in the fall? But knowing that the fall is September, October, November, it's still 3 months. It's as long a season as the hot weather season, which is July, August, September. So that's one where I have to think hard about. I can't use it in bouquets, but I can't use Park M in bouquets either. So, and that did make my number 10. Of course, it just barely made my top 10, just because it's a color that's completely different than anything else that I have. And Encore would be my number 11 for the same reason. It does well in the pop cans. It's a great fall seller. It's a prolific bloomer. It's a prolific tuber producer. I just can't use it in bouquets, and I can't use it when it's hot out. So it should make an appearance in my dahlia beds before Conor McBee does. We shall see. Now, yeah, so I don't know what I was just going to say there. Oh yeah. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet and you're enjoying my videos, please subscribe. It does mean a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. And thank you to all of those of you who have. And now I just want to show you one final thing, which was that incredible thrifted purchase that I made this morning. It can be used as a vase, but it's a low, shallow, look, it's a hat. It's a glass hat. I haven't taken the price tag off of it yet. It's a low, shallow vase. You can use it, like for instance, and I will because this is a day old, if I take the stem off of that, you could float it in water in there. But the thing is I won't be selling it because it takes up too much space in my flower wagon, and it's too tiny, limited opportunity as a vase. But I am going to use this for change or my keys or whatever else. And I'll just put a picture here how I decided that I'm going to use it. It's on my stand in my dressing area that I keep all my hats on, as well as my purse. So this can sit there and the keys can go in there, change that's in my pocket can go in there, so it's useful. And it's kind of cute because it's a hat with my hats. So that's how I'm going to use that thrifted find. I just think it's adorable. Yeah. Very happy to have bought that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I'm going to leave in the description box below links to a couple of videos. I haven't figured out what they're going to be yet. Look down there, you'll find out what the links are. And if they're ones that you haven't seen before, check them out, because they will somehow be connected to this video, but I don't know which ones they're going to be yet. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.